Rob Butler.
BBC.
Radio Norfolk.
Next up, we have a sound recordist and friend of BBC Voices, Chris Richmond, here for a chat. Like many of us, Chris has been heading out on walks whilst in lockdown, and whilst out around the Norfolk coast, he began to notice the differing sounds and thought about how to record them, which is something that's really interesting. Let's play you some of his stuff before we speak to Chris Richmond. This is this spring evening in the Nar Valley. That's the spring evening in the Nar Valley. Just beautiful sounds, and that's something that Chris Richmond has been doing. He's been out and about recording that, and well known to us here at BBC Radio Norfolk. We spoke to him many times. Hello, Chris.
Hello, good evening.
Great to have you with us. Really
Yes,
enjoyed
thanks
that.
for having me back.
Yeah, we're gonna be listening to a little bit more of what you've done a little bit later, but let's have a chat with you first.
Yep.
First of all, obviously this has inspired you, lockdown, and the fact that you've kind of been going on long walks around the beautiful county of Norfolk, and I guess that's what's inspired you to start recording a bit more.
Yes, it's all come to a bit of a head because we're an ideal time of year, sort of springtime, especially before June. You know, the birds just go mad. You know, you've got all this bird song everywhere, and combined with the increased quietness because of lockdown, it gives you the opportunity for ideal recording conditions for all this. So, yeah.
And you're calling them Norfolk Soundwalks, which is, you know, it says what it says on the tin, doesn't it? It's in our beautiful county, and it is just sound. There's no kind of commentary or anything like that. It's just, I mean, I think they call it ASMR, don't they? That's the kind of the genre that you're going for, where people can just kind of put it on in the background and just sort of lay back, enjoy, close your eyes maybe, and just kind of drift away a bit.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, ASMR is something slightly different that's a little bit more involved, and there's a technique for that called binaural recording, which there are binaural recordings on my Norfolk Soundwalks album. That's where you actually hear things using in-ear microphones, so you hear it from a 3D listener's perspective, which I think is wonderful. But aside from that, it's just a case of I go out on my daily dog walk with my dog, and we go somewhere, and if there's a sort of a sound that inspires me, like that cuckoo who got really close, we just plonk the recorder down for 5 minutes, wander off, and just see what comes of it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I heard the cuckoo. Of course, you couldn't miss it. I mean, what a beautiful sound that is. And, you know, just the sound. Talk about the sound of birds. I mean, it is something that you can't fail to love, can you? It's just such a beautiful, calming, nice sound, isn't it?
Yeah, especially without the added man-made sounds that, of course, have now started to creep in as levels are returning to normal. But, I think people can relate to that bird song as a calming sound because it is just, it's nature, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you talking about man-made sounds, you have got some beautiful man-made sounds you've done a project on as well, where you recorded all the church bells in Norfolk, which was what a mammoth task. But that's another man-made sound that actually is very lovely to listen to.
Oh, yes. And, of course, that's not finished. We have had to halt things as bell ringers because of this nasty disease, and the fact we can't be in close proximity of each other and handling bell ropes and things. So that's just on pause at the moment. We'll get back to that once things start to ease a bit more.
And obviously, Chris, you're a bell ringer yourself.
I am, yes.
So what is it about? I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? I think everyone always wants to have a go at it because it always looks like great fun. What is it about bell ringing that you love so much?
Well, funnily enough, it's actually my sound recording hobby was the reason why I got into it in the first place. Being a keen lover of sound and things, I had to sort of start looking for times and places where bells were ringing, and I sort of got involved in the bell ringing community from that. And once I saw what it was all about, I found it fascinating. There's such a history there, and I just got involved, and I got hooked, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Once you get hooked, you can't give it up, and it's sort of in your blood almost. So what made you start all this? Why did you decide to become a sound recordist? Have you always had a love of kind of listening to radio and things like that, or was it some other reason that you decided to do it?
There is no one reason why. I've always been very orally aware of sounds throughout my life, and even when I was very young, I had things like tape recorders and would like to go and record stuff, and I think it's all sort of come from there. But now I'm in a position where I can start to make something of myself from doing it, and it's sort of a hobby which is quite rewarding in several different ways.
Tell us more about the rewards you get from it, Chris. That's interesting.
Well, I seem to have built up quite a unique collection of sounds, not just sort of things that you'd expect a sound effects library to consist of. I seem to have a very niche selection of sounds which I personally like to record. But what I've been doing over the last 5 years is I've built up my Infrastructure Recordings sound label, and my sounds are actually now getting used in media and are available to use in, commercial and non-commercial projects. And what I'm doing here with this Norfolk Soundwalks project is just testing the waters to see whether people are interested in listening to sounds just for their own pleasure, like I did.
And that's really important, isn't it? Because obviously sound effects, and we know because we work for a radio station.
Oh yes.
In drama, have you sort of put yourself out there to have requests for sound effects from any dramas or anything? Because that could be a little side project for you.
Yes, it would be nice, wouldn't it? It doesn't quite work like that. I think the sound designers, sound editors look for a specific sound, and some of them know where to go for sound straight away. They have their preferred sound libraries and things. Otherwise, you couldn't search online for them, and if that particular sound appeals to them, they can buy it sort of a la carte. You pick whichever sounds you want and buy them like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, really interesting. I love the thought of you creating a new library. You're gonna have the Chris Richmond sound effects library. I think that there could be a money spinner in it for you there.
I don't know about that, but it'd certainly be different.
It would. Right now, thanks for joining. It's been really interesting to talk to you. Now, tell us about this piece we're going to play. We're going to play Hunstanton to Snettisham. So tell us about that, and then we'll play it.
Right. Well, this was a walk I did not too long ago. It's very calm. See, this is the other thing. Just recently we've had such a good spell of clear, calm weather with no wind. And it was one of those evenings where I went to Hunstanton. I sort of escaped the hustle and bustle of the town and just headed south along the west coast. And it got to a point where I thought, well, no, we were losing light, but I thought, I've got this far, I'm going to have to go all the way down to Snettisham, which is, as far as you can go along that coast on foot. And as the evening sort of went on, it was so calm, and once you get towards Snettisham, there, the wash is just like a mill pond. And that's one of the things I'd like to highlight from this recording. And of course we had some lovely squeaks from the oyster catchers who were, sort of trying to get their last scraps of food for the day, and because I was away from the recorder, they got quite close, so I'm quite pleased with that one.
Okay, here it is. Now, just before I let you go and we play that, I just want to quickly mention one thing I forgot is if people are interested in listening to this, Chris, just give a quick plug to where they need to go. Right,
well, currently it's available on my Bandcamp page, which is infrastructure-recordings.bandcamp.com. And I've also got a SoundCloud page, just search for Chris Richmond and you'll see my collection of sounds on there.
Brilliant stuff. I'm sure lots of people will be listening to that. They're really nice pieces. Thanks for talking to us, Chris Richmond. Here is Hunstanton to Snettisham.